Since my 6th year anniversary on YouTube is coming up, and this will count as an anniversary special because I've been way too busy during February and the beginning of March. So I thought I'd take some time and talk about my history with gaming. I don't talk about myself that much. In fact, almost none of you know anything about me other than snippets that I divulge from time to time, but I figured, why not? I was born in 1985, the same year that the NES came out, and I remember getting it for Christmas when I was about 5, maybe 6. So the first video game that I played was Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. The NES version I had gotten was the action set, where it came with 2 controllers, a zapper, and the aforementioned game. I'd also gotten the Power Mat and that track and field game, and that Power Mat never worked for me. Although my dad always got it to work because he would just pound the buttons with his fists. I remember having a lot of NES games. I had Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, obviously. Super Mario Bros. 3, Bugs Bunny Birthday Bash, which was the longest freaking game I've ever played at the time. Tiny Toon Adventures, which was probably my favorite one. And then there was a game called Dino Wars, which was fun for a while but got really repetitive, and that's all that I could remember from the top of my head. But I didn't play the system that much. Reason being is because we only had one TV, and that was in the living room, so it was shared between me and my parents. I'd also gotten a Game Boy at some point, but I don't remember when. I didn't play it that much, as the only games I had for it was Tetris, Tom and Jerry, and Kirby's Dream Land from what I can remember. But it wasn't until I got a Sega Genesis for what I believe was my 8th birthday in 1993. It came with Sonic the Hedgehog and came with a coupon for a free copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and you had to mail that in. And from that moment on, my life was Sonic and Sega. Oh, I loved Sega and was a die-hard Sega fanboy at the time. I got the Game Gear for Christmas that year too, and had all the Sonic platformers for it. Which is actually kind of funny because people get mad at me at my Crusader Ascenti review because I said that the Genesis wasn't known for its great graphics or sound processing, which is an objective fact. The sound processor and graphics processor in the Genesis just were not up to par with the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo came out in 1991. It benefited from 2 years of better technology. The Genesis came out in 1989. I mean, come on. Logically, there's going to be a huge step in difference between 1989 technology and 1991 technology. And I did ask for a Super Nintendo because my cousins had one. But since I'm an only child, it was one console per generation. I never really pushed it because I could never really justify why I wanted one to myself. Sure, the games looked good graphically and sounded better, and like I just said, the SNES had a better graphics and sound processor. So as a former Sega fanboy, those of you who are still Sega Genesis fanboys, there's no reason to get mad, just accept it. But I will say that the people who knew what they were doing with the hardware could make it sing. Then, after my grandfather on my father's side passed away, my father built an addition onto his mother's house. And we moved into that addition because my grandmother, who was and still is a spiteful psycho bitch, and those of you who think, oh, she couldn't be that bad, she would put sewing needles in my grandfather's meatballs when he didn't let her have her way. That's how crazy she was. Moving on, my dad had gotten a PlayStation for his birthday, I think in 1997, because Final Fantasy came out that same year. Me and my dad played that system to death. Literally. That thing died after 2 years. I would play Mega Man 8 and X4 on it all the time, and then I would play Final Fantasy 7. Now, the funny thing was, I beat the game, but never saw the ending cutscene because the system was near death. All I got was a star shower and the intro music playing. I had a friend that would come over and would play Resident Evil because his mother wouldn't let him play it at his house, and my dad played and beat all the Tomb Raider games. I wanted a Sega Saturn because I wanted to play Knights and Sonic Extreme looked awesome. But again, only child, so it was a one system per generation house. And the PlayStation was just a better system as it had more games that interested me more than the Saturn had to offer. Even my cousins who had a Sega Saturn didn't play it that much because Sony curb stomped it. This was also when Pokemon came out, and I don't remember why I got it. All I know was that it interested me and I bought Pokemon Blue. And when I first saw the TV advertisements for the Pokemon anime, I thought the goal of the show was for them to go around and actually kill the creatures. Because I was watching it before school and I didn't really pay attention and saw it kind of out of the corner of my eye, where Ash throws the Pokeball and it hits Bulbasaur and turns red and explodes in light, I thought they were supposed to kill him. How wrong I was. But I had gotten everyone at my middle school into Pokemon. There wasn't a single person who I didn't get hooked, and those that didn't was because they didn't have a Game Boy. I only played Generation 1 at the time, and I skipped Generation 2. Funny thing is, during this time, I I had absolutely no interest in the Nintendo 64. I was really into the PlayStation and had pretty much written off Sega at the time because of lack of Sonic games. Until 1999. The Dreamcast came out and I got it a few days after launch and I had just started high school. Sonic Adventure was a game I played constantly. It was like being back in elementary school all over again. I got into Phantasy Star Online because I had the Sonic Adventure 2 demo disc. I loved Grandia 2, and I had a couple other games that I really can't remember. I tried to get Skies of Arcadia, but I never did. Sadly, the Dreamcast went on life support shortly after the PlayStation 2 came out, and the plug was pulled in 2001, just in time for Sonic Adventure 2. Granted, I still played my Dreamcast all the time. It was the only system that worked as the PlayStation was officially dead. Christmas came in 2002, and I had gotten a Gamecube with Metroid Prime and Star Fox Adventures. I really just wanted Metroid Prime because my uncle bought it and I was hooked on that game. Both games were packed in with a system because my parents got it at Costco, so you could get a system and 2 games at a cheap price. My dad had also gotten a PlayStation 2 that very Christmas with Gran Turismo 3 and Jak and Daxter. I played both systems equally, and played my Game Boy Advance a lot as well, although I never got Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire. I did get Emerald, but that was years later when I was in college, but I hardly touched it. And my dad didn't use his PS2 that much. I used it quite a bit because I played a lot of JRPGs. I really loved the dot hack games and was really into the entire franchise until Legend of the Twilight. When they made the new series, I played the first game and stopped at that. When I went to college, I got a PS2 of my own and would play games like Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank. The PS2 really became my system of choice for JRPGs and exclusives. I was never interested in the original Xbox as there was nothing I wanted for it, and if there was something on it that I wanted, it was on other systems. I wasn't into things like Halo. Granted, I played it a few times, but didn't see it as the phenomenon that it was. During this time, I became friends with someone who was also named Mike, and was an aspiring game developer, and we would hang out all the time. In fact, I helped him develop a game called Neo Sonic Godspeed, a Sonic fan game that was featured in either PC Gamer Europe or Eurogamer. I don't remember as I lost my copy of the magazine that they sent us a long time ago, but I know that the cover was black and had that little girl from Fear on it. We started working on Neo Sonic Godspeed 2, and I was voicing Shadow. The demo is still floating around somewhere if you can find it. We had many groups of friends. We'd play King of Fighters, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Mario Party, Mario Kart Double Dash, Soul Calibur 2 and 3. Weekends were extremely busy. Then the Xbox 360 came out. I decided to buy it as a Valentine's Day gift for myself as I was coming at the end of a relationship, and from what I could remember, it was also kind of on a whim. As the PlayStation 3, which wasn't out yet, but it was still too much at the time, so I decided, I'm gonna go with a 360 because it's $200 cheaper. And I was surprised how much I liked the console. I played Dead or Alive 4 on it way too much, and eventually my game collection grew for the system. While Saturday nights ended at our friend Brian's house, my place got used for the Xbox 360 for a little while until Mike got his own. The PSP was my portable system of choice at the time, and I could barely hold on to a Nintendo DS. I had like 3 of them and would trade them in after I got bored. I played Pokemon Diamond a lot, but no one would play with me because while they were all taking their time, I beat the game in like 3 days. I just couldn't justify owning a DS at the time. Eventually, me and Mike had a falling out. Not because of different ideals, but the short story is that he started dating Yoko Ono, who pretty much caused our group of friends to divide and go our own ways. Not a single person in our group of friends liked this girl. They found her infuriatingly annoying. Eventually, she broke up with him because she was just using him for his car, and I heard that the breakup was spectacular in a terrible way. I'd gotten a PlayStation 3 shortly afterwards as the price dropped and I bought a refurbished one. Then 2 weeks later I was able to get a Wii. And then my place became our central hub of gaming as me, Gus, Garrett, and Will would play Smash Brothers all the time. Or other games as I had all the systems at the time. Will and Garrett were into World of Warcraft. The Burning Crusade came out and I decided to give it a try and I got pretty sucked into it. Gus, on the other hand, got addicted. Like, really addicted to it. To the point of me, Garrett, and Will needed to almost literally drag him out of the house. I ran into my friend Josh at Walmart one time. We barely knew each other at the time, but when we recognized each other and tried to make a connection of where we had seen each other, when he brought up Mike, I had replied, "Oh, you mean that?" followed by very, very profane language. And we've been the best of friends ever since, as we created an unbreakable bond over a mutual hatred of someone. Just so you all know, this is part of his best man speech that I'm giving next week at his wedding. Josh got me back into card games, as it was and still is a hobby that he will never give up. Yu-Gi-Oh! Being the preferred game. Although now seems to be a mix of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon, Card Fight Vanguard, Card Fight Buddy Fight, or something like that. I don't know. There's so many card games out there, I can't even keep up with them all. And then I was having financial troubles. Deep financial troubles. So I barely bought any games, if at all. Eventually selling my systems as I need the money more. I switched from Mac to Windows, sold my MacBook, and used the money to buy a Dell laptop that had its own graphics card, and then I started gaming mostly on that. Then I moved and started this YouTube channel with that very Dell laptop. And if you've kept up with my channel since 2011, or at least went back and looked at all my older videos, which are crap, by the way, you'd be pretty much caught up. I used that Dell laptop for emulation of old systems, and things started getting better financially. And then I got an Xbox 360 for Christmas, and still have it. And then I was able to buy an Asus Republic of Gamers laptop at the time, and that became my main gaming machine. And I named it the Behemoth because it was so big. Then I bought a PS3, a 3DS, took advantage of a phone upgrade, got an iPhone, traded that into GameStop, and got a Wii U and PS Vita, and then later on bought a PlayStation 4. Then in 2014, tragedy struck. My gaming laptop died. I bought a desktop PC and called it the Monolith. I upgraded the power supply, added more RAM, and added in more cooling fans. Then in the beginning of 2016, I rebuilt the Monolith into the Monolith 2.0, sporting a new motherboard, new case, liquid cooling system, and an NVIDIA GTX 980 Ti. I got a new 3DS XL and had given up on Yu-Gi-Oh! As the game just gets more and more complicated and focuses more on archetypes instead of creativity, and started getting into the Pokemon card game, as I've been on a massive Pokemon bender for a while now. What's funny is that throughout all the time I've been playing games, I never once played Dungeons & Dragons or any tabletop role-playing game or strategy game. I liked Warhammer 40k, but never played it. I bought HeroClix once, but never learned how to play it. I tried the Dot Hack card game, but the rules made absolutely no sense. And I have a Magic the Gathering deck, and I know how to play, but my area isn't that big into it, and same with Cardfight Vanguard. Although those who are into Magic don't really want to play me because I run old-school slivers. But yeah, that's been my entire gaming history from what I can remember.